Now, it's been a while since a new video was posted to the Jaguar Jones channel, so I guess we better make this a good one. The last video you saw around here was my rant against giant corporations being allowed to spend limitless amounts of money on political elections, and it was generally well received. The comments of that video seem to be a reasonable discussion of the topic at hand. I'd like to extend a special thanks to Anti-Citizen X, who presented a calm, rational, and sober counterpoint to my arguments. For a while, the conversation was so civil that I almost forgot we were on YouTube, but then Anti-Citizen X's comments started getting marked as spam, and then I felt right at home. I don't have any illusions that this video will get treated quite as civilly, because this time, instead of knocking around creationists, the answers of NWO, or even Frank's voice, I'm going to be taking on some of the most unreasonable and ideological bigoted individuals there ever were. That's right, teabaggers, our time has come. I'm going to be going after the army of spelling bee champions sort of a roundabout way, so stay with me here. First off, let's establish some definitions so we're all sure that we're all talking about the exact same thing. Net neutrality. Do you know what it is? If you do, and you don't want to listen to my rambling rankle of profound prattle in an attempt to define this concept, you can skip to the point in the video represented by this annotation, or you can stick around and listen to me try to explain this and then tell me how wrong I am. Now, as former Alaska Senator Ted Stevens teaches us, the internet is not a big truck, but a series of tubes. For illustrative purposes, I'm going to demonstrate what the relationship between me and Cox Communication, my internet service provider, or ISP, is. Essentially, I pay Cox Communication a monthly fee for them to maintain an electronic tube between my house and the internet, represented by a cloud, which is the symbol that represents the public internet in network schematics. Under the status quo, Cox is completely neutral as to what comes through this tube. In other words, it is me who gets to decide what data comes in and out of my home. I can watch YouTube videos, I can upload YouTube videos, I can read the news, subversive blogs, or whatever else I might want to read. I can surf porn, hump a few sheep in Farmville, play network games, or write a blog, or even maintain multiple websites from my home computer. But why stop with my computer? I can hook up a phone service like Vonage and use this tube as my phone line. I can play games on my Wii with other people using this tube and stream movies from Netflix right to my television set. In other words, I get to decide what data is flowing in this tube, and Cox, my ISP, is completely neutral about it. That might not be entirely true. If I'm doing something illegal with this tube, like uploading or downloading child pornography, hacking into someone else's system, or actively defrauding people, Cox does seem to have a little bit of a problem with that. Under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or the DMCA, that we're all so familiar with here on YouTube, an ISP has safe harbor from liability so long as they take immediate action when they are notified that one of their customers is grabbing his ass all up in the internet. So if I'm hosting a giant cache of movies for anyone to download for free, my former Congressman Dan Glickman, who is now the head of the Motion Picture Association of America, or MPAA, might just go to Cox and complain that I'm giving away their movies for free, and Tom Cruise won't be able to buy 65 Humvee limousines for David Miscavige to abuse Sea Org members in, and Mel Gibson won't be able to donate $3 million to the Pedophile Priest Defense Fund. But other than that, what comes through this tube is pretty much up to me. This is the concept known as net neutrality, and it's the way things operate right now. However, seeing as how that billions of dollars being raked in by giants ISPs are no longer enough money for Patrick Esser, president of Cox, to be able to buy his 7th yacht, they got to figure out a way to make more money, because everyone knows you have to have at least one yacht per ocean. One way they could do it is to severely limit or completely restrict websites that don't pay the ISP for access to their customers' tubes. They could do that, or they could just charge the customer a premium for access to certain sites. They could even categorize sites and have you buy them in a package like this conceptual diagram from the Huffington Post illustrates. Now, if this feels a little bit familiar, go look at the packages of television channels that you can get with your cable company, Dish Network, or DirecTV. They will just package up websites and sell them to you like cable TV channels and charge you extra to do what you do now for one low price. The good news is that the United States government, in the form of the Federal Communications Commission, opposes this idea because it restricts consumer choice. However, the United States government, in the form of the Federal Appeals Court, ruled that the FCC does not have the authority, under current law, to tell the ISPs what they can and can't do with your tube. Naturally, lawmakers have got involved, and the ones who are playing pocket pool in the ISP's pockets are the ones who think that ISPs can do whatever the hell they want. There are some more court cases and debates in Congress left before this will go into effect, but the bad news is that the ISPs will eventually win, and the reason is quite simple. Ignorant teabaggers who will get mad about what they are told to get mad about. You may be saying to yourself, this doesn't make any sense at all. After all, teabaggers stand for maximum individual freedom and would never let giant corporations tell them what they can and can't do on the internet. But you have absolutely no idea how wrong you are. Enter Americans for Prosperity, or AFP for short. In this little press release that you can see at tinyurl/AFP sucks donkey balls, all one word, the concept of net neutrality is not mentioned one single time. What they do mention is government takeover, Obama, socialist allies in Congress. Not one single time in this press release or this lame-ass TV commercial do they tell anyone about what they will be losing if the giant ISPs get their way. Not once do they say that the government actually wants to keep the internet the way it is. All they do is scream Obama, socialist, and government control. And you know what? That's all they have to say. In the coming weeks, you're going to see hordes of Glenn Beck-worshipping sheep lining up and demanding that giant corporations, not the government or consumers themselves, get to decide what everyone else can and can't do on the internet. It simply amazes me that people can be led so easily. Stopping the government from tightening the screws on these con men is exactly what I would guess everyone wants, regardless of political affiliation or ideology. Seriously, teabaggers, why don't you just make a sign that reads, "Stop limiting the number of ways that giant corporations can screw me"? You screamed and screamed, oh, please let the health insurance companies keep screwing us around, and despite the so-called healthcare reform bill, they will continue to screw you, me, and the rest of us around from now on. Right now, Freedom Works and AFP have you carrying signs that say that the irresponsible behavior on Wall Street that brought the value of your homes and 401ks down to only 20% of what they were actually benefited real Americans like yourself, and government regulation would just make things worse. In the coming weeks, Glenn Beck is going to insist that Hitler and Stalin tried to regulate the internet, and anyone who is for the communist idea of net neutrality, where anyone can have their own website on the taxpayer's dime, needs to be castrated. Once again, you will shill and even fight for things that aren't good for you, me, or anyone else, all because corporate front groups tell you that any government regulation is socialism and you hate socialism, despite the fact that you have only an elementary understanding at best of what that word even means. All they have to do is say Barack Hussein Obama is trying to take over the internet, and your blood pressure will rise to apocalyptic levels, and you'll pour into the streets demanding that the socialist Muslim keep his hands off your beloved internet. The worst part is, teabaggers, by the time you have done the ISP's dirty work and figured out that you actually screwed yourself along with everyone else, it's going to be too late to do anything about it. What's to prevent all the ISPs from completely restricting access to websites like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, perhaps the most vocal advocate of net neutrality? If there's a candidate that runs for office on a platform that includes, among other things, restoring net neutrality, do you really think your ISP is going to allow you to have access to that candidate's website? Even if that candidate cries foul and invokes the equal time rule, the ISP can simply say we aren't subject to the common carrier law, which is a law that the FCC is trying to impose on the ISPs, and the ISP can simply say that rule doesn't apply to us. Once it's dawned on you how bad you screwed up trying to stop the government takeover of the internet, what are you going to do? Get online and try to find other like-minded people and start a website to restore net neutrality? Well, good luck with that. But you are right about one thing, teabaggers. It is an arrogant sense of entitlement that is ruining this country. There is a small but boisterous minority convinced that the fruits of this nation are their sole birthright, and they find now that they share the same struggles of more common folk, and insist that the American dream is somehow their exclusive property, and demand that their voices be heard above all others, and their interests take precedent over anyone else. They will extol the virtues of democracy when they get their way, but then threaten violence when the majority overrules them. They loudly and wildly insist that every one of their constitutional rights is absolute to the degree of absurdity, but just as loudly insist that those outside their xenophobic demographic be denied theirs. So you want your country back? Bad news. It's not your country. It's my country. It's his country. It's her country. It's their country. It's our country. And we, the majority, demand that our government enforce network neutrality not just for ourselves, but for you too. I'm Jaguar Jones saying good day, and pangolins are totally gay.